Hey guys, and welcome to the Love You Even More podcast. I'm your host, Jacqueline Brubaker. I'm a psychotherapist, actor, and Emmy Award winner. After 20 years in the entertainment industry as an artist and entrepreneur, I've gained a unique perspective into the minds of creatives and high achievers. Because let's be honest, I am one. In my work as a therapist, I support high-achieving, big-hearted people who want to create a life that feels as good as it looks. And that's what the show is all about, a space to learn from experts in the fields of psychology, relationships, business, and the arts who have paved the way. Are you ready to love yourself even more? Let's get into it. Welcome, Audra Phelps, to the Love You Even More podcast. Audra is a neuroscience coach. She helps people, I'm going to guess, rewire their brain, correct?
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
To finding what they need to be doing, moving on in their life transitions, all of the above. She's a very fascinating story about leaving the Mormon church and what that looks like and her transformation. This is an episode we're going to really focus on with, if you feel stuck in your life, how can you move forward even if you think it's impossible? Because clearly it is not, and you did. And we're going to get all into it. So Audra, my favorite first name, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me. I'm really excited to share.
Awesome. Thank you for being here. So we're just going to jump into it. We were just talking for just a second here. You grew up in the LDS church, the Mormon church, as most people know it, and did kind of the whole cookie cutter thing, right? Like you got married, you had the kids, and then sort of start there. Like, when were you starting to feel things were just not working for you anymore? Like this is gonna change. Like what? Because it's not an overnight thing; it's a process. And I think it's relevant for anyone who is like kind of come to a literally a come to Jesus moment of like, I don't think I want this anymore, but it's hard. It's hard to leave. And as you said, it can be debilitating. So kind of what was your journey getting there? And then what did it look like when you got there?
Sure. Yeah. I just want to preface the story that the story of me leaving is really my personal experience, and it's not at all meant to influence other people to leave. I have, some good family and friends who are still in the church and totally respectful of everyone's beliefs and choices. This is just my coming to be and recognizing what didn't align with me and finding out what did.
Totally. This is not, we're telling you to do anything. This is just her story. And if it resonates, great.
Exactly. Hindsight after leaving. So I was raised in a very strong LDS family, and I left when I was 35. So for 35 years, I was living the prescribed life, and everything is prescribed, right? Like from what you eat, what you drink, what age you start dating, you should get married young, you should have kids young, what your role is as a woman, like everything is prescribed to you. And so I was in it for 35 years. It was a very slow erosion of being able to tell myself I am not Mormon. Now, hindsight, looking back, even as a kid, there were times when like things didn't sit right and I was uncomfortable, and I was the one in Sunday school raising my hand like, well, that doesn't make any sense.
Oh my God, I did that too. It's one of my earliest memories. Literally asking the teacher, I'm like, wait, that didn't actually happen though, right? And they're like, no, it did. I'm like, no, that could not have happened. They're like, it's a miracle. I'm like, oh, okay, I'm 5, but I know that's wrong. Anyway, go on.
Yeah,
so great.
Exactly. And then in the Mormon church, there's even more stories and policies and doctrine that just made me go, I mean, more than like mainstream Christianity, but there was more things that made me go, what?
Yeah.
But I didn't always get hung up on those things, because as a kid, I was told you just have to have enough faith. and
Mm.
your doubts are sinful. And if you have a doubt, then you need to just pray more and you need to bend your will to the will of the Lord's. So what did that teach me as a child? That taught me to distrust myself,
Mm-hmm.
right? It taught me to push down all of those emotions that were bubbling up. Like this doesn't
Mm-hmm.
align. And I pushed it down because I was supposed to make my will the Lord's will.
Yeah.
And so I did that for 35 years. Every time I questioned, I pushed it down. I don't have enough faith. The Lord works in mysterious ways. That was when I heard a lot too. So there
Mm-hmm.
was never really an answer or an explanation to these things that didn't make sense to me. And um, I went to BYU. So that's the church's school in Provo, Utah. I grew up in Southern California, but went to
Mm-hmm.
Utah to go to school. And so I was surrounded by the bubble, the Mormon bubble, the monoculture. Like everybody was doing the same thing, you
Mm-hmm.
know? And so I got married young because
Mm-hmm.
that's what everybody was doing. And I don't think I really knew that there was a choice. I mean, it's like there's a choice, but it's a manipulative choice.
How were you
It's like,
presented the choice of getting married so young?
no, I don't think I was ever presented a choice. It's not that I was told you have to get married. It just was what everyone else was doing.
Mm-hmm.
And if you didn't, the goal was always to get married. The goal was to get married in the temple. That was
Mm-hmm.
your like ticket to eternal salvation.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you made a different choice, then you were basically saying, I don't want eternal salvation. I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
postpone, so there was
Right.
these like existential pressure that this is just what you do.
Yeah.
And it's what everybody was doing. Everybody around me was all about dating and finding your spouse. And then once you get married, the first thing in our wedding ceremony. So I found a great husband. We're still married today. We're one of the lucky stories that
Yay.
that that worked out. But I remember when we got married, the guy that married us in the temple, when as soon as the ceremony was finished, he said, now multiply and replenish the earth.
No pressure. No pressure
Yeah.
whatsoever.
Right. So it's like that was the role, that was the life that I was given. Like I said, it was a prescribed path. So,
Mm-hmm.
that's what I did. 4 months later, I was pregnant with my first child, and I was 20 years old when I got married.
Oh my
Like
gosh.
so young.
Just a baby.
Yeah,
She's barely,
just a
barely out of
baby.
teenagehood.
Exactly. Exactly. So I mean, I think this is really intentional with the church that they put you on this path at such a young age.
Yeah.
So before your brain is fully developed,
I was just thinking that.
before you really have these critical thinking skills and you've come
Mm-hmm.
into who you are, you're already on the path.
Yeah.
So, it's very difficult to walk away after you're already in that life.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, so fast forward a few years, we have 3 kids. Um, I'm not working because my divine role is to be a mom in the home. So,
And no shame to that. There's a lot of people who are
and
very
no
happy
shame to
with
that.
very
Thank
very
you.
happy being
Yes.
housewife moms. It's all good. No, no shame.
Thank you.
We love a
Yes,
trad wife.
absolutely.
It's okay.
Absolutely. Thank you for clarifying that. Uh, but it wasn't aligned with me, but I didn't recognize it yet. And the signs that I had were we were living in Boise, Idaho at the time. My husband was a teacher. Um, we had 3 kids. My youngest was about 3 or 4 years old, and I was really struggling with severe anxiety, like having
Mm,
panic attacks almost every day,
yeah.
and depression, like really depressed, and I couldn't figure out why. Like, my youngest was old enough, it probably wasn't postpartum. Um, I was doing everything the church was telling me to do, right? I
Hmm.
was living this quote righteous life. I was going to church on Sundays. I was going to the temple when I could go to the temple. I was reading my scriptures, praying. I was a stay-at-home mom, which is what, my divine role was. And yet, the hindsight, my body was screaming at me,
Mm-hmm.
this is not you. This
Yeah.
is not you. You're living a life that's not yours. You're living a life that was given to you, but this is not the authentic Audra.
And that must have been so scary because did you even know who the authentic Audra was at all yet?
No,
Right. So
no,
it's like, well, I know this isn't right, but everything that I've been told was to do this and I did it right. But
right.
now what am I supposed to do? Like, who am I
But
supposed
now
to
what am I supposed to
be?
do? Yeah, exactly, exactly. And so I did a couple of things at that when I was really struggling with anxiety and depression. Um, I went back to school because I never finished at BYU because, I
Mm.
got married young. I mean, that's the end goal, right?
That's why we go to college. God, it sounds like we're in the 50s. It's insane to me, but come on. What were you
Yes.
studying?
Uh, I went back to school and chose to major in biology education.
Oh,
Now
cool.
that was so the I was I was courageous enough to make the decision to go back to school. I knew that I wanted a career. I knew that I wanted to find who I was. I knew I liked science, but I chose teaching not because that was really what I wanted to do. So I still
Mm.
had, the church's expectation of me in
Yeah.
my head. So I chose biology teaching because being a teacher was the most benign job that a Mormon mom can have because I
Mm.
didn't have to put my kids in daycare. I would have the same days off as them. So it didn't affect the family at all because,
Wow.
I was conditioned really for years that my responsibility was to make sure everyone else was taken care of and that my kids' happiness and my husband's happiness was my responsibility.
Ugh, that's heavy.
And so I made this decision to go into biology education based on those beliefs that were given to me.
Hmm.
So loved my time in school because now I had something for me and I found
Hmm.
myself like successful and I was making really good friends that were outside of the church because the church is
Hmm.
really good with like fellowshipping and your community. They're
Hmm.
really good at that. You always have a social structure.
Hmm.
But now I was finding this, social life outside of the church and I loved it. I felt more connected with that friendship circle than I felt with people in the church because they really aligned more with who I was and my personalities and my likes and desires. And I felt like I could be more open and vulnerable with them without any kind of judgment.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So then I finished school, taught in public school in the US for about a year. And my husband was also a teacher. So, again, perfect job, right?
Perfect.
Perfect job. And again, I felt like this isn't, I'm not there yet. There's something else. There's something else. And I hadn't quite put my finger on it yet that it was the church, but I was struggling at this point. Like I was going to church on and off. I
Yeah.
had a lot of anxiety. I noticed that my anxiety was usually centered around going to church.
Mm.
Um, and we came across a teaching couple who had just come back from teaching overseas. And so we got introduced to the world of international education. So we knew that we wanted our kids to see the world. We knew that we wanted our kids to have like this broad worldview, but we were teachers in Idaho making like no money. So there was
Mm.
no way we were going to be able to travel with 3 kids. And we thought, why don't we work in international schools and then, take our kids with us.
Oh my God, that
So
sounds
that's what
so
we
cool.
eh. It is very cool. It is a great life adventure. So this was 13 years ago. So we literally sold everything we owned except for 2 suitcases per person. And we moved to a country that we'd never been to before with 3 kids. Our kids were 7, 9, and 11.
Oh my
And
gosh.
we moved to Kazakhstan, which is, not exactly the typical country that most people would move to.
You're like, we'll
But
go.
yeah, I'm like, okay, get me out of here. I just knew I felt like a bird in a cage. I felt like a bird in a cage,
Mm-hmm.
and also, in the Mormon church, because the social structure is so good, you go to church with people who live in your neighborhood. So it's
Mm-hmm.
like you just have close proximity to everybody all the time.
And that seems so lovely. And it is, but it's also, like you said, it creates this bubble where you're just
Yeah.
so inundated, and it would be hard to have critical thinking and to want other
Yeah.
things. And who am I going to talk to about these other things that I'm not even sure what I'm thinking about yet, but I'm feeling something's happening. So, yeah, you going back to school and meeting people kind of on the outside that gave you a chance to actually start listening to your body. And I love that you
Yeah.
talk about that too, because so much of the time people are not listening to their body until it is way too late and it's like screaming and about to explode, and they're missing the anxiety, they're missing the depression, they're like pushing it away,
Yeah.
they're missing the physical ailments that are starting to pop up. They're like, why do I have health issues? Oh, because I have all this anxiety I'm stuffing down. I mean, there's
Yeah.
so much that's happening that your body is telling you, and it's wonderful that you listen to it. But so many people, I think, in this position are getting all the telltale signs, but they're just not doing anything because maybe they're
Yeah.
just not ready to really face it. But go on.
They're
You
not
moved it.
ready.
Go on.
Yeah, they're not ready, or they just don't know. They just don't
Yeah.
know that anxiety and that feeling in their body is really their subconscious mind speaking through their body.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this doesn't align.
Right.
So we moved to Kazakhstan, and there was actually a Mormon church in Kazakhstan, believe it or not.
They are everywhere. They are just
Everywhere.
everywhere.
But at this point, I'd already been really questioning and kind of, 1 foot out for several years. And so we did go a few times, but it was the same, like, it didn't align. I don't feel comfortable. I didn't feel comfortable,
Mm,
you know? And especially after having the experience of, when I went back to school and really finding some good friends that I aligned with, I could see the contrast of the
mm.
social relationships I had at church versus the social relationships that were much more genuine.
What were the
And I could,
differences, do you think?
um, in church, I felt like I had to always fit the persona of who I was supposed to be.
Mm,
And if I didn't, there was a lot of, side eye or judgment, or you would get called in to the bishop's office, and, let's talk about your testimony. Is your testimony wavering? Or somebody would show up
mm,
at your door. Like in Idaho, we had the elders quorum president who's like, he's not the bishop, but he's kind of in charge of the men of the ward, you could say. And like,
mhm.
I remember I hadn't gone to church in a little while, but my husband was going with the kids, and he showed up at our door one night unannounced, which to me is rude, number one. But he's unannounced, and I opened the door, and I was getting ready to head out anyway. And he said, "Oh, Sister Phelps, we noticed you haven't been at church in a while,"
Eek.
which is passive aggressive, right? And then
Yeah.
he says, we just really want you to know that we love you. And I'd probably never had a conversation with this guy before, ever. Like, this is not someone I'd ever talked to.
Oh my
And
gosh.
I remember feeling this rage come up. And
Ooh.
I looked at him and I said, "Love me? But you don't even know me."
Ooh.
And then my husband was standing behind me with like his jaw on the ground. And I just looked at my husband and I said, you're handling this. And I walked out the door right past the elders club president, got in my car and drove away.
Ooh, I love
So it was like,
that.
it was that kind of like, I love you if. I love you
Yeah.
if you're following the plan. I love you if you're being who we tell you to be.
Yeah.
And if you're not, I'm going to come show up at your door.
It's just, I'm sorry, I'm watching that show, The Testaments. It just feels like that.
Oh, I watched that show too. I love that
Oh, I
show.
love, well, I mean, Handmaid's Tale came out and I was like, well, it's over
Yeah.
now. Like this is, woo. But Testaments is amazing. Yeah, I was literally watching it before our episode. I was like, I'll just prep and watch the Testaments. But it does feel like that. It feels
It
like,
does.
hey, like we are surveying you, and
Yep.
where are you? Like you need to be part of
Yeah.
the flock, and if you're not,
Yes.
like we need to make you be part of it. So
Yes.
when and how did you like officially leave the church? Like how did that finally go down?
Yeah. So we're living in Kazakhstan and we'd been there about 2 years. And the ch I had pretty much totally stopped going to the church there. I was largely out, but I couldn't bring myself to actually say I'm not Mormon. I couldn't bring myself
Mm,
to change that identity because identity is the deepest part of our subconscious and who we are, and it makes up our values and our beliefs and everything. So I couldn't quite make that identity change yet, even though I knew that it wasn't a church that I aligned with.
right.
And then the church made it really easy for me because in November 2015 they came out with a policy, well, a doctrinal policy they called it at the time. They've since changed that. But they came out with a doctrine that children of gay parents were considered apostates of the church and could not receive any of the blessings of the church.
Oh God.
And like, I remember reading that and I wanted to throw up.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, this is, and they framed it like it was love, like it was protecting the children. And I remember immediately like this visceral reaction. This is not love. This
Yeah.
is hate. This
Yeah.
is hate. And this is actually contradictory to the other things that the church teaches.
Mm-hmm.
That, they say love and acceptance and inclusion, and they also, one of the tenets of the church, they have these things called articles of faith. And one of them is that man is not responsible for Adam's transgression, which basically means, for those who didn't grow up Mormon, which basically means that everyone's responsible for their own sins.
Mm-hmm.
And so I
Ooh.
was like, well, that's a direct contradiction to
Yeah.
this major article of faith that you have. And it's based in hate. And
Mm-hmm.
and it was such a visceral reaction that I stood up out of my chair. I walked upstairs. I shut the bedroom door. I was still wearing garments at the time, which is like the
Mm.
special Mormon temple underwear. And I remember I took them off and I looked at myself in the mirror and I said, I am not Mormon.
Mm. Mm. That's powerful.
And so with that was like, I just felt like the whole world opened up. I say, like, it felt like it opened up into a million stars. Like I just felt light and airy and open and expansive.
Yeah.
So I sat in that for a minute and then the terror came. Like,
Cool.
then who am I? I'm not Mormon. I know what I'm not,
Yeah.
but I don't know what I am because I've spent 35 years being who they told me I am.
Right.
So it was empowering and scary all at the same time.
What you're describing sounds a lot like an ego death, where you have
Oh,
an
huh.
identity. It's your ego, right? Your ego has created this
Yeah.
identity, but then it starts collapsing. And it's interesting too. I've been through an ego death before, and it's almost like you kind of go in and out of it while it's sort of happening until it
Uh,
really hits. So like you get these glimpses of the other side and you're like, oh wow, like the things I cared about just don't matter anymore, like to put it simply. And the
Right.
things that I do care about seem so simple as well. And you go kind of in almost like having an out of body experience until you're just like that moment where you rip off the garments and you're like, I'm freaking done and I'm not
Yeah.
this anymore. But again, who am I? Which is such a powerful place to start from total scratch, like who,
Yeah.
and I wouldn't say total scratch either, because you were creating an identity for all of those
Yeah.
years after you started going back to school and like making new friends and moving to Kazakhstan and like just creating this other life slowly of like what did fit for you. And I just love
Yeah.
that you just stick it to the man too. That just makes me so happy. Oh, it's so nice. Because, as my mom would say, like, she grew up in the church and she's like, you're
Mhm.
just taught to be this good girl. Like, all the
Yeah.
time. You were in the good girl school, is what she would say. I was
Yeah.
raised to be a good girl and to like be nice and be gentle and never argue and just do what you're told and all of the things. And I mean, I'm sorry, that is like a breeding ground for rage. I
Yeah.
would think.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And manipulation. It's really easy to manipulate people who are just living a prescribed life,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. I was going to ask too, for you, but also just other people. I wonder what it is that sort of gets in, like the crack that happens, or the little tiny cracks that are happening that gives that moment of light where someone's like, wait, this doesn't actually make sense. Even years into their life, they're like, hold on, maybe. And then it's just such a conflict of like ego, of like, what am I supposed to do?
Yeah.
What am I supposed to be? How do you think that happens for some people where the cracks come in?
I think it's very similar to my process where it's very slow. It's little things that make you go, that doesn't sound right.
Mm-hmm.
But then, you're told to push it down. And then maybe, a little while later, there's something else. Or you just keep circling back to that same thing. I mean, I never really got into like the discrepancies in the history of the LDS church or things like that. But I know a lot of people do. They really dive into what happened
Mm-hmm.
in those early years when the church was formed and Joseph Smith and all the
Mm-hmm.
all the things that were hidden from the members. And some
Mm-hmm.
people really dive into that, and that's where their deconstruction starts.
Mm-hmm.
Um, some people, like for me, there were definitely things that I never agreed with, like the church's history of polygamy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yeah.
but I was told for a long time, like, well, the Lord works in mysterious ways, and you have to remember that in the what I was told was in the early days of the church, they it was the one true restored gospel on the earth. And so they needed to grow the congregation. And so the Lord approved polygamy in order to grow its membership.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I was told as a kid,
Yeah.
right?
Makes sense.
But that, ew.
No, but I mean, I'm thinking about too what my mom said. Okay, yes, ew, for sure. No, but I'm thinking about what my mom said. She's like, you have to remember, they're like going across the country in the like frontier days, and like people were dying all the time. They needed extra wives. I was like, stop, just stop.
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
But really, that's
So
what she was told. I'm
I
like,
know.
come on.
I mean, but honestly, like these are the things you're told, and like, but you've already learned to distrust yourself, and you've
Yeah.
already learned that the authority of over your life is not you. The
Mm-hmm.
authority over your life is God, but really the church, God speaks through the church and through the prophet and through your church leaders. So you're constantly going to the men
Yeah.
who are in charge for as the authority over your life. You don't have authority over your own life. So when you hear these things, like the reasoning for polygamy in the early days of the church, you're like, I'm so uncomfortable with it.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't have the authority to make a decision on what you think about that because someone else is going to tell you what you think about that.
Yeah.
So it takes a lot of those kinds of experiences to slowly wear it down. And then for me, what was powerful was when I moved to Kazakhstan. I mean, I was on the other side of the world where nobody even knew the word Mormon. That religion was not anywhere in Central Asia, except for the small branch that was there. But, really nobody knew. And I was surrounded by people from different countries because it was an international school that I was working in, surrounded by people of different countries, different religions, different cultures. And I now had a physical separation from it. I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't surrounded by a ward. My neighbors weren't all Mormon. People didn't even know what Mormon was. And so I could like zoom out and see like the helicopter view.
Yeah.
And that allowed me slowly to start seeing things objectively and going, those explanations don't make sense and they don't
Right.
feel good to me.
Yeah. I'm thinking about how sad it must have been to also recognize I'm letting this go because I can't
Yeah.
believe in it. I can't, I don't believe in it. And you obviously, Mormons have huge families, and family is the number one important thing of this church. I'm sure there was a grief of realizing like what you're going through, what you're headed towards, but then also telling your family members like we're leaving.
Yeah, I hid from that for a long time, to be honest. I think
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't when I first left, I knew I was making the right choice for me. Um, but I hid from the grief. I pushed it down. It was also easier to hide because I was on the other side of the world.
Mm-hmm.
But I hid from it for a long time because I didn't know how to process the grief. I knew that relationships would change, and they did. When my family did find out, it was really hard.
Mm-hmm.
It was really hard. And there was a lot of years of silence between us. And my perception was the love that I was told was unconditional is actually conditional.
Yeah.
And that's painful. And that's what a lot of people go through when they leave the church. You're grieving so much loss, but it's not like somebody died,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like it's still right there in front of you. It's
Mm-hmm.
just not accessible anymore. And so I was grieving a loss of identity.
Yeah.
I was grieving a loss of family and friends and a whole a whole structure. And so that took many years for me to be able to actually face it. But
Mm-hmm.
then also at the same time, when I made the decision to leave, my kids were ages 9, 11, and 13. And now I was like, well, I started raising them in this church.
Yeah.
How am I going to tell them, oh, kids, guess what? I changed my mind. Yeah. You know, obviously it's
Yeah.
not that simple, but that's how I felt that it would come across. And they would,
Mm-hmm.
you know, because it was in their formative years where they were taking on an identity where I raised them in this. So now I was going to change their identity.
Right.
And so that scared me to death. It's like, how am I going to do this?
Yeah.
And I'm a problem solver. Like if I see a problem, I just jump right into action without always a lot of the emotional processing behind it. But at least that's the old me. That was the old me. The new me is much different. But that was, and so at the time, I was like, well, then, okay, what kind of moral compass am I going to give my kids? What are the beliefs? If we know what we don't believe, then what do we believe? And I love this moment. We got the whole family together and we were like, let's come up with a Phelps family mission statement. And we're going to paint it into a mural. And so we brainstormed together with our three kids, like what kind of values are really important to you? What kind of values do you want to live by that you think would make you a good person?
Mm-hmm.
And we came up with these value statements together as a family, like honesty and kindness and respecting others' opinions.
Mm-hmm.
Things like that is what we came up with. And then they all took turns like painting a different mural that represented the Phelps family mission statement. And so that for me was kind of, even though I hadn't really emotionally processed things in, consciously yet, I was taking action towards a new me.
Yeah.
So I've always been very action oriented. And then the emotional processing came after.
Yeah, sometimes you gotta just leap. And I think that you were right to just kind of jump and then the net will appear. I think it actually did kind of
Yeah.
work for you. When did your husband, were you and your husband always on the same page? And like when you were like, I'm done, he was like, I was already done. Or like, how did that catch up?
Um, well, we've always had a very open communication in our marriage. And so even through all of my years of struggle, like we would talk about it a lot. And
Mhm.
sometimes he would disagree. I would say this doesn't feel right to me, and he would disagree, but he was always very respectful of me being allowed to have my own opinions. And so when I left, he was also questioning, but he wasn't quite at the point that I was at
Mhm.
yet. And so right after I had that moment where I said I'm not Mormon, I went downstairs and I told him right away.
Mhm.
And he just looked at me and she was quiet for a few minutes. And then he said, "Okay, I'm not there yet." So yeah, he said, I think I'm going to still go to church. And if the kids want to go to church, I'll take the kids to church. But
Mhm.
I totally respect that that's where you are.
Yeah.
And so he didn't leave when I left. But about a year or so later, he came to me and he said, I'm done. So his
Mhm.
was a much quieter process.
Yeah.
But he also did eventually leave the church.
Was that hard for you, kind of waiting for him to leave?
It was hard because I think I was impatient.
Yeah.
I think I didn't recognize that he needed more processing time.
Mm-hmm.
And I was able to make the decision in that moment like that. But he needed a lot more time to ruminate on it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was impatient at first. But at the same time, even though he said he wasn't ready to leave, it's not like he was, living the Mormon ideal. It's not like he was going to church
Mm-hmm.
every Sunday. I think he only went like 3 or 4 times after that.
Yeah.
So we didn't have the struggle that some women have when they leave, where their husband might be in a leadership role.
Yeah.
And, then that's a lot more complicated. That's a lot more
Mm-hmm.
complicated. And there's a lot of marriages that end when, one spouse leaves and the other stays.
Yeah.
And some that work out, but yeah, so it was difficult for me, but um I would say that our relationship didn't really change. We were still very open with our communication about everything, and it's not like he was trying to force me to go with him or anything like that,
Yeah.
Yeah.
That sounds like, yeah, you picked a really good guy at a young age. Proud of you. That's
Yeah.
really hard to do. And I think we should all give you a round of applause because it does sound like you guys chose the right match for each other. And you are open with each other and you do communicate, and he does accept you for who you are. And there's a lot of conditional love within the Mormon church, a lot of
Yeah.
patriarchal stuff happening. It's extremely patriarchal. And
Yes.
it could have been a very different scenario where in a different scenario, your husband would have been like, no. And you just may not have felt as free even to keep exploring even at the like pace that you were going at. But and in those cases with those marriages, yeah, I would not be surprised that it wouldn't make it, because if someone's like, I'm very rooted in the church still, and the other person's like, how can you say, like, I'm giving you all of this information on what's going on, how do you not see it? And they're like, I
Yeah.
don't want to, or I don't believe you,
Yes.
or whatever. I've been in that scenario. It's really difficult to be the person who's like, look at everything. And you're like, how? But it is their
Yeah.
journey. Like, even as a therapist, like I could give you goals. I could tell you all the things you'd ever need to know. That's not my job, but I could. And it wouldn't really help. It might make you go, huh, but it wouldn't change your mind and it wouldn't
No.
change your direction because that's just human. Like you have to do stuff when it feels right for you. And you'll never know when it's right until it's right. So,
Yeah, exactly. And like, speaking of marriage, it was maybe I think about 8 years after I had left that now I was starting to kind of reconstruct a little bit more because, like I said, I hid from it for a long time. And I was constantly living in different countries, so I wasn't forced to face it for a long time. But about 8 years after I had left, I I tell this story because it's a simple illustration of the experience of a lot of women when they leave. So it was Thanksgiving. I was making apple pie, and I always make things from scratch. So it's like you have to make the crust the night before, and it's all this work and let it go in the fridge and da 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 da. So anyway, I'm making apple pie and I'm finding myself feeling like really resentful.
mm,
And I'm like, why am I feeling resentful? Well, I don't like apple pie. Why am I don't even really like making pie.
oh,
Like,
oh,
but I don't like apple pie. Why am I making apple pie?
mm,
Well, I'm making apple pie because it's my husband's favorite. And I make it every year because it's my husband's favorite. And I was like, okay, well, what kind of pie do I like? And I didn't even know.
oh,
Like I had spent so many years making sure everyone else had what they wanted and what they liked that
mm-hmm.
I didn't even know what kind of pie I liked. So how could I make
God,
any kind of a big decision if I didn't even know my favorite kind of pie, you know?
yeah,
And that sent me into this really deep and dark rabbit hole of what else have I done just because it makes other people happy?
yeah,
What other life choices did I make when I was the young Mormon girl following the prescribed path that set the trajectory of my life? And now I'm living that life that was created by Mormon Audra.
mm-hmm.
What would my life have been like if I had made decisions that were based on what I wanted, not on what other people wanted?
Mm-hmm.
And then so it led into really big questions like,
Yeah,
would I have gotten married so young? Would I have had kids so young? What kind of a career would I have chosen? Because I knew that teaching wasn't really my career
right,
of choice. And and I really kind of got stuck on, do I still choose this person today? I chose this person at that time 23 years ago when I was young Mormon Audra. And now I'm a totally different person. Do I still choose this person today?
yeah,
And a lot of women go through that. And it's like grieving the life unlived, the life I could have had if I had made a different choice. But here I'm living the life that was based on the choices that were given to me,
yeah,
right? And um I actually found this woman on Instagram. She was a coach. She does NLP or neuroscience-based coaching, and she had a program where the whole purpose was that by the end of the program, you would be able to know if you were going to stay or go in your marriage.
oh,
And I
interesting,
like I stalked her for a long time on Instagram, but like all of her reels, I was like, wow, I feel like she's looking into my soul. Like she's saying all these things that I haven't verbalized to anybody because I was embarrassed.
yeah,
I was these were really big questions and struggles and like how could you say you don't know if you married the right person? I didn't want to admit that out loud. How could you say I don't know if I would have had kids so young? You don't want your kids to know you're thinking that,
right. There's a
you
lot of
know?
shame. Yeah,
There's a lot of shame there. And um, anyway, I ended up reaching out to her because I couldn't make sense of the emotions in my own head. And I knew that I needed someone to help me.
Mm-hmm.
I needed someone to help me have that objective view and kind of, you use a guide to help me understand my own emotions and figure out what kind of pie I liked, all the way up to all the way up to, do I still choose this person as my spouse?
Yeah.
And that process was transformational for me, because it was really a deep dive into identity that I hadn't done prior to that. It
Mm-hmm.
was a I I can't make the decision of whether I choose this person unless I'm clear on who I am.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't make a big decision like that from a place of frustration or worry. I have to make that decision from a place of peace.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And so that process taught me so much about conditioning, about beliefs, about identity, about how your brain stores information, how you can rewire, beliefs, how you can get rid of that old conditioning. Because even though at this time I had been out of the church for about 8 years, I say my inner critic was still Mormon.
That makes sense.
Like, yeah, it was still there, like telling me what to do and what to believe and what to think. Even though I knew I wasn't Mormon anymore, I hadn't undone the conditioning and
Mm-hmm.
reprogrammed what
Mm-hmm.
was right for me.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, those stories and that voice, and it's never our voice, it's somebody else's voice that we're just remembering very, very clearly. It's always there being that little inner critic. Talk to me about how you started getting into coaching, this in particular. Like, how did you know after your own experience that you wanted to start
Yeah.
helping others do this?
Yeah. So when I went through this program, All About to Stay or Go in Your Marriage, it really introduced me to the world of coaching, which was not something I was very familiar with before. And at the end of the program, I remember talking to my coach, and I was really clear on my decision to stay. I was really clear that I still chose my husband, which still gives me goosebumps today. But um and so I was talking to her, and she was, okay, what's next? What other kind of big questions are you working with? And I knew I was in a career that was not aligned with who I was.
Mm-hmm.
And I had kind of tossed around some different business ideas, and I really, in my years of teaching, the things I did love was, I loved it when students would come into my classroom. I was a high school teacher, so they would come in with the, big life questions, or they would be emotional about something. And I liked being like their pseudo counselor and helping them work through things. And then when I moved into administration, I would have a lot of parents coming into my office and asking for parenting advice and how do I deal with this situation. And so I was talking to her about, maybe some kind of a coaching similar to what you do, but, working with parents. And she said, well, what kind of demographic do you want to work with? And, oh, I don't know. These were big questions I hadn't really thought through yet. And then she said to me, have you thought about working with other moms who have left the Mormon church? And
Yeah.
that was another like epiphany moment for me. Like, I burst into tears. I was like, that is it. That's it. Because it is so lonely. When I left, I just remember feeling so alone and such a loss and such a grief, and also so much mom guilt of
Yeah.
how this is affecting my kids. And when I left, I didn't know anyone else who had left. And
Mm-hmm.
so I was navigating this alone, like playing darts in the dark. That's how it felt.
Mm-hmm.
And then it took me, 8 years to really, and I'm still processing some of that inner Mormon critic, but
Totally.
it just took so many years for me to come to a sense of who I am. And I thought, yes, that's what I want to do. I want to do the this neuroscience coaching to help women who have left, to help them recognize the conditioning, to help them understand their emotions,
Mm-hmm.
to help them find the identity and the desires and the beliefs that align with them,
Right.
to learn how to tune back into their intuition. Because they have done everything in their life by permission only up
Mm-hmm.
until this point.
Mm-hmm.
And what I learned, which I love about myself now, is I am the only authority in my life. And so when I make a decision, the answer is in me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't need to consult 10 friends and listen to 100 podcasts and read all the
Mm-hmm.
self-help books. The answer's in me. I just need to sit with it and process through it and trust myself. And
Yeah.
I really, really love helping women come to that because, and then there's the parenting piece too, but parenting is a subset of who you are. If you're not clear on who you are first, then you're constantly parenting without your own guidebook. So it's making your own guidebook based on who you are.
Absolutely. I mean, that learning to trust yourself, but also you make such a huge point with you came from a place where like you always had to ask permission and you never had the chance to even think for yourself in a real way that mattered or to trust your thoughts. Like your whole upbringing was about denying. And
Yeah.
to feel that sort of autonomy and that agency come up in you, and I'm sure in this very like natural, like kind of almost like sparkly way, like, oh, wait, I can do this. I can
Yeah.
make this. Wait, no, I'll just trust. I don't need your advice, actually. Thank you. It's so powerful. And I think, your story is so important and so unique, but there are so many other people who have either left the church or just feel that way in life in general, where
Yeah.
they felt shrunk by other people, whether it was a church or their parents or their, work, whatever it was, like just shrunk. And that's the whole part of coming back and growing into who you are is really asking who you are. I actually do have a question. Um, what kind of pie do you like?
Blackberry pie. Yeah.
Ooh, oh, that's unique. See?
But that's funny that you asked because I went on a mission. I went on a mission to find out my favorite kind of pie. Like after that, so that was Thanksgiving. Then at Christmas time, I bought like all these different kinds
Oh
of
my
pie. And I'm like, I'm gonna taste them all until I know which one is my favorite. Yeah.
God. Your kids must have been very excited for that.
Yeah. They're like, ooh, what pie today, mom? Hmm.
Oh my God. That's so cute. But I love it. I love it. It's just, I think sometimes too, it's just like you don't even know that you're copying something or going along with something until you're like, wait a minute. If that, I think about this with like my upbringing, like my whole family was, at least on my mom's side, was in entertainment. And that was just a huge part of my world. It still is a huge part of my world. But I'm like, gosh, what if I was brought up in like a different kind of genre, right? Would that have affected me? Would I have still gone into entertainment or would I have gone into something different? And it's something that all of us have to think about. We
Yep.
are how we're nurtured. I mean, it is a very nature
Yeah.
versus nurture kind of thing. I know I would have gone into entertainment, but the other side of my family is they're all doctors, they're all lawyers and scientists and engineers, and that is strong in me. But had I been more exposed to it, I wonder had maybe I would have had better math tutors because I'm really bad at math. So that was the only reason. But no, but we are like what we're brought up with, and it can take forever to figure out what do I actually want to dress like? What would I want my hair to look like? Just really mundane, weird things that you just don't even think about until one day you ask, what
Yeah.
pie do I like?
Yeah. I mean, honestly, it starts really small. It starts
Mm-hmm.
and so many women, I think women in general, not just women who have left a high demand religion, but I think women in general get to a point in their life where they're like, I don't know, because I've been serving people for so long.
Yeah,
And they also don't know how to like tune into their own body, like we were
yeah,
talking about in the beginning, those signs that your body is giving you. So one of the first things I tell women when I work with them is start listening to your body for little things first to start to rebuild that trust. Like little things like, what do I want for lunch today? A sandwich or a salad? Which one feels good to you?
Yeah.
And then follow that. And then as you start to trust your body, then you can start using it for these, bigger questions and bigger decisions.
Right. I love that you say that because I live my life like that too. It was a big part of me learning to trust myself after a long time. Audra, this has been so much fun. You are so interesting and you're doing some good work out there. Can you please let people know how they can find you?
Yeah. So I have a website. It's mamaAudra.com. And I have a program called Reclaimed that is a curriculum for ex-Mormon moms. It also we embed group coaching and one-on-one coaching in there as well. And it's really to help women navigate that grief and guilt and loss after leaving and become confident in who they are.
Love.
And yeah, it's really, really transformational. I love the woman in the program. And so if you go to my website, mamaAudra.com, there's a free masterclass on there. That's kind of your first step. So please jump on there. I'd be happy to work with any woman that this resonates with.
Nice. And that'll be in the show notes, guys. Just go click the link. You'll find them. Well, thank you, Audra. This has been lovely. I think that a lot of people listening will definitely resonate with so much of this, whether they were in the church or not, especially if they were.
Yeah.
It's just nice to hear other stories that sound somewhat similar to yours when you're searching. But thank you so much.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for providing such a safe space for people to share their stories.